You know, it seems like every large film franchise eventually reaches the point where they're like, you know what, screw it, let's just send them to space. And well, just 6 films into the Godzilla franchise, that's where we're at. Invasion of the Astro-Monster, a film where mysterious Planet X is discovered that houses life in the universe. These X-Planet citizens need help defeating King Ghidorah, and the humans decide to send Godzilla and Rodan to help them. But maybe, just maybe, the citizens of the X-Planet may not be what they appear. And also, guess who's back? Back again. That's right, it's Akira Takarada in his 3rd Godzilla starring role in his 3rd different character. It's 3 different films, 3 different characters. Same actor, but they're like, screw it, just recast the character, they'll never know. And that is a really weird plot point about these films, I gotta say. Like, the plot with the monsters has continuity, but they recast the same actors as different characters. So the monsters have continuity, but the actual human characters don't. It's a little bit strange. So you might be wondering, is this the point where Godzilla jumped the shark? And well, maybe. I mean, sending them to space is a little bit bonkers, even for a franchise about a giant lizard. And this film was admittedly a little bit nuts, but I don't think it was nuts in a bad way. It was actually nuts in a very fun way. It was also very significant in the franchise because this is the first movie where Godzilla is a full-on good guy after his face turn at the end of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And that'll eventually go in a little bit of a controversial direction, but for now he still maintains most of his edge. But is that edge enough for him to beat King Ghidorah once again? Well, we're gonna find out as we take a look back at Invasion of the Astro-Monster. So the movie begins with 2 astronauts named Fuji and Glenn on a space mission to a mysterious new planet they're calling Planet X, which mysteriously appeared right behind Jupiter. Forgot to mention this, by the way, but Glenn is being portrayed by an actor named Nick Adams who died 3 years later of a drug overdose and allegedly had sexual relationships with both Dean Martin and Elvis Presley. So yeah, that's a fun fact there. Fuji is also concerned meanwhile about his sister Haruno, who is dating an eccentric adventurer named Tetsuo. Tetsuo has invented some sort of personal alarm called the Lady Guard, and is being bought by a toy company headed by some woman named Namikawa. Namikawa buys the invention for 50 million yen, which naturally leaves Haruno a little bit suspicious. Also, I want to bring notice to this moment because it's one of the funniest things I've seen in one of these movies. Tetsuo says to Haruno that if her brother saw this, he would flip, and then it immediately cuts to Glenn and Fuji upside down in space, which I gotta say is incredible comedic timing and maybe the best joke I've seen in this franchise. Anyway, Glenn and Fuji arrive on Planet X, and everything seems to be going well until some lightning comes out of nowhere. Luckily, Fuji has a gun, because even on another planet, you gotta stay strapped. Fuji looks in the soil of the planet though and notices footsteps. He also notices that Glenn and their spaceship have completely disappeared. A random cylinder elevator then rises from the ground, and a mysterious voice beckons Fuji to enter. Fuji obliges and ends up in some mysterious base with bread-shaped doorways. He finds Glenn in there as well as the citizens of this planet. Look at these dudes. Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. Anyway, they talk to the controller of the planet who has brought them here to seek help with some monster called Monster Zero. But they've seen this Monster Zero before, as it turns out to be the mighty King Ghidorah. The controller proposes a deal. Earth allows him to use Godzilla and Rodan to fight off King Ghidorah, and in return, he'll give them the cure for cancer. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. Fuji and Glenn agree to return home and propose the deal, and they fly off in their spaceship as the controller laughs evilly, but I'm sure that's nothing to be concerned about. Back on Earth, the Japanese government, who now speak for the entire world I guess, unanimously agree to do the deal with Planet X. They then send out the military to locate both Godzilla and Rodan. Meanwhile, Tetsuo goes to the company that bought his invention as he's yet to be paid for it. He tries to meet with the boss. Hey, look, those glasses seem familiar. But the boss burns his invention and sends him away. Tetsuo and Haruno then meet up with Glenn and Fuji just proceeds to shit all over Tetsuo's life. Glenn then leaves as he has a date, but Tetsuo looks out the window, which reveals Glenn has a date with Namikawa. The next day, Glenn takes Fuji on a drive and reveals that during his date while he was asleep in the cabin, the controller randomly appeared in there. They then begin to suspect that maybe Planet X's intentions aren't what they seemed. That is confirmed when they go near a lake where they think Godzilla is. Hey look, it's Kitsuyama again. And they find 3 spaceships from Planet X coming out of the water. They meet up with the X people and the controller apologizes for the intrusion, saying that he was just there to collect Godzilla and Rodan. And then they proceed to do exactly that as they yoink Godzilla right out of the water and yoink Rodan right out of the mountain. They were just napping, yo. Fuji, Glenn, and their boss Dr. Sakura then get on the spaceship and go with the X-citizens back to their planet. Meanwhile, Tetsuo has followed Namikawa back to an island where it's revealed that Namikawa and the rest of her compadres are actually X-citizens in disguise on Earth. Tetsuo tries to enter the house, but haha, trapdoor bitch. Meanwhile, back on Planet X, King Ghidorah arrives and they deploy Rodan and Godzilla, and the battle is on once again. Godzilla hits him with that Falcon. Punch! And Ghidorah flies away, and then Godzilla does whatever the hell this is. While this is going on though, Glenn and Fuji decide to break the rules and go explore. They avoid the guards and go up an elevator which leads them to a room full of gold. They find a woman that looks just like Namikawa, and then another woman that looks just like Namikawa, and then they're arrested by a third woman who looks just like Namikawa. They're then brought back to the controller who's like, yo, that's not cool, please don't do that again, and then he's like, alright, here's the cure to cancer. He also gifts them an exact replica of their spaceship, and they fly off without Godzilla and Rodan, who look at them like, dude, what the fuck? Meanwhile, back on Earth, Haruno asks the real Namikawa if she knows where Tetsuo is, and Tetsuo has been locked up in prison by the disguised X-citizens. Fuji, Sakura, and Glenn bring back the tape that's supposed to contain the cure to cancer, but psych, it does not contain that at all. It instead contains orders that Earth must become a colony of Planet X, or every citizen on Earth will die. This, of course, causes everybody to panic, and mass riots ensue. Glenn, meanwhile, finds and confronts Namikawa, who begs him to marry her and move with her to Planet X. He refuses, as he will not be controlled like she is. More of the X-citizens show up to capture Glenn, but Namikawa relents and slips something into his pocket. As a result of her betraying her people, she is then vaporized. Meanwhile, more bad news. It appears that King Ghidorah has gone to America, and America is considering launching the nukes, because duh. To make matters worse, the X-citizens show up and start blowing shit up, and then tell the Earthlings that they have 24 hours to comply or be destroyed. But how will they be destroyed? Well, turns out the controller is mind-controlling Rodan, Godzilla, and Ghidorah, and will send them upon the planet to destroy all citizens. Sakura realizes though that they're using magnetic waves to do this, and luckily, he's got plans for a magnetic wave destroyer just sitting around. Hey, that's convenient. Meanwhile, Glenn has been trapped in the same room as Tetsuo, and they determine that the room is soundproofed, but they can't figure out why. Tetsuo luckily finds the note that Namikawa gave to Glenn, in which she tells them that the only weakness the X-citizens have is some loud, piercing noise. Tetsuo then realizes that that's why they tried to buy his invention, because it makes a loud, piercing noise. But does it really work on them? Well, you bet your ass it does, and it allows Glenn and Tetsuo to escape. And they're getting away on a boat, bitches, let's go. Oh shit, well that's unfortunate. Haha, psych, you really thought they were on that boat? Nah, son. Glenn and Tetsuo make it back to Fuji and Sakura and tell them about the noise, which allows them to formulate the second part of their plan. The controller, meanwhile, begins to sense that something might be wrong and decides to deploy Ghidorah, Rodan, and Godzilla early. And then, of course, you know the drill, cue a 5-minute scene of Godzilla and Rodan just wrecking house. Our human friends are on the case though as they deploy the piercing sound throughout the entire radio broadcast of Japan, which begins to fuck the X-citizens shit up. Hey look, King Ghidorah's here too. Wasn't he supposed to be in America? Ah, screw it. This plot hole makes it easier for them to deploy the magnetic ray disruptor, freeing all 3 of them from their mind control. They also nuke the X-citizens' Earth base, and the controller realizes that he's lost and sees no other alternative than mass suicide. You might be thinking though, man, this movie should really end in a monster fight. Well, don't worry, all 3 of them have snapped out of it and woke up, and they begin to fight again. Eventually, Rodan and Godzilla use a double team move on Ghidorah, and all 3 of them go careening off a cliff into the ocean. Swear I've seen that before. Ghidorah flies away, but there's no sign of Godzilla and Rodan, although I'm sure they're fine. Fuji and Glenn start to plan a vacation, but not so fast. Glenn's going back to Planet X as an ambassador, and they all have a laugh about it, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. So this movie was delightfully ridiculous, but how high can we rank it? Well, let's pull up the Godzilla big board and find out. So this film is more bad in a good way than bad in a bad way, which is more than I can say for Godzilla Raids Again or King Kong vs. Godzilla, but it's not objectively, actually really good, so I can't very well put it ahead of the top 3, so I think 4 is a good spot for this. So here are the current rankings 6 films in. Godzilla 1954, number 1, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, number 2, Mothra vs. Godzilla, number 3, Invasion of the Astro-Monster, number 4, Godzilla Raids Again, number 5, and King Kong vs. Godzilla, number 6. So was this a jumping of the shark? I mean, yeah, it was, but at least they jumped the shark in an entertaining way. This movie was completely off the wall, completely ridiculous, probably the most ridiculous of the 6 films so far, but man, they made it work. And even though it wasn't, again, objectively a great film like the top 3 in our rankings, it was a fun film. One thing you might have noticed though is they reused the same kaiju minus Mothra in this movie, so you might be thinking, are we going to get introduced to a new kaiju soon? Well yes, we will, as the next film, Film 7, is called Ibira, Horror of the Deep. And that movie was released about exactly a year after Invasion of the Astro-Monster, which was released the same year as Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. So we're just in the state now where they're just pumping out Godzilla films. But the big thing I can say about this movie is that it was fun. Again, it was not objectively good, but it was fun. It's important that if you're gonna make a movie that's kind of technically a bad movie, that you at least make it enjoyable, you at least make it fun, you at least make it something that somebody can look back at and be like, you know what, was that movie great? No, but it was a fun movie and I enjoyed watching it. And that is how ultimately I will look back at Invasion of the Astro-Monster. And this will probably be our last Godzilla look back until probably November, as we're going back to horror next week with Scream, then going back to King Kong the week after, and then doing horror movies the entire month of October. But in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, give Invasion of the Astro-Monster a shot. Because it was the jump of the shark, it was the begin of the babyface turn, and it was ridiculous, but it was fun. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it from me today. Thank you everybody for watching. If you want to check out any of my social media links, they're all in the description. Thank you all 52 of my patrons, also named in the description, for supporting me and both my channels. With all that being said though, my name is Noah Taft. This has been my Godzilla look back at Invasion of the Astro-Monster, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.